Hello and welcome to Autology, the weekly podcast that brings you the latest on automotive technology. My name is Anna Buettner, and this week's episode is called Keep on Trucking, Generation EV. Here with me are today's guests, David Trippany, IHS Markit's Technical Research Director for Consumer Analytics, and Adam Richardson, E-Mobility, Powertrain, and Thermal Research Analyst within IHS Markit, focused on the North American market. Hello, both of you. Thank you for joining this week's episode of Autology.
Hi, Anna. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Before we get started, it would be great to have you both introduce yourselves to the audience and tell us something about your roles, please.
Great. So this is David Trippany. I am focused on, as you mentioned, consumer research and consumer analytics. I have a background in user research, really trying to help bring an understanding of the consumer around certain technology topics, including electrification, as we'll talk about today, into our forecast portfolio to help us better understand, how we can take consumer perceptions on technologies to improve our forecast outlook in the future.
Okay. And again, my name is Adam Richardson, and I'm the North American Market Analyst within IHS Markit Supply Chain Technology Group. And in my role, I am responsible for strategy analysis of light vehicle and passenger technologies, which this also includes EV charging infrastructure, supply chain dynamics, propulsion and thermal system technologies, and also cross-team North American auto industry product management as well. And I also support the development of current and future e-mobility, powertrain and thermal data forecasts, and I also help foster client relationships. And like David mentioned, this is an exciting time to be researching and discussing electric vehicles. So glad to be with you today.
Great. Thank you both again. So this week's podcast is all about EV trucks, and we'll be discussing the increasingly competitive electric truck market and the Chevy Silverado EV that was shown at CES. That is, of course, the Consumer Electronics Show that took place in Las Vegas. I think we can all agree that it is a very dynamic time. Adam, you already mentioned this in the automotive and mobility industry. 1/3 of new car sales are projected to be electric by 2030 globally. And with all of the recent EV truck news that we have been hearing about, let's jump right in and discuss implications for this new market segment. David, let's start with you here maybe. What are consumers' major concerns over EV trucks?
I think there's a couple points worth mentioning. First of all, the ruggedness of a truck, right? Truck buyers, especially in the market here in the US, have a certain expectation of toughness, right? We see that marketed with standard ICE trucks that are on the market, how OEMs are kind of selling those and what kind of type of wording they're using. But ensuring that EV trucks are as tough as the current trucks on the market that these truck buyers are used to buying, number one. Generally, there's certainly some price concern as well. EVs that are currently in the market are priced a little bit higher than standard ICE vehicles in general. So that's a concern, right? Especially as these buyers are already spending a fair amount on a fairly premium vehicle. So, there is some price sensitivity as we move forward. Hopefully the federal incentives that are out there, and as some of these OEMs are breaking into this market, will still be available as these trucks, and I'm sure Adam will talk about it in a little bit as well. We always have the issue of charging and range anxiety. We're adding a whole lot of vehicles, right? The truck segment is a very large segment at least in the North American market. So how is that going to impact the issue of range anxiety, especially in the US? We've done some consumer research globally, and in the US, the expectation, and this wasn't just truck buyers, that vehicles have a minimum range of about 300 miles before someone will jump into the EV market. So, fortunately, we'll talk about this, I'm sure, that trucks, given their architecture, have some benefits as far as range goes. But also, when we start talking about some other issues like towing and things like that, there's some downsides of trucks potentially if the technology isn't ready yet as we move forward. And then, truck buyers are very, very brand loyal, right? There's a lot of pride in the Ford or the Chevy truck that someone may own, or the Ram truck, right? So it's tough for them to look at, especially some of these new startups, and say, hey, I'm going to step out of my comfort zone from my F-150 and move into a Rivian truck, for example. Fortunately, we're seeing, Ford with the Lightning, F-150 Lightning. You already mentioned the Silverado EV making their way in the market. That could help kind of reduce some of that loyalty concern that we may have. The final point I want to make is truck buyers like to go onto the lot and drive off with their vehicle. Their work truck broke yesterday, or their truck broke yesterday. They need a new truck tomorrow, right? A lot of these vehicles, especially if we talk about today or within the next 6 months, are requiring deposits, right? And you're waiting, 6 months, a year, who knows how long for some of these brands to make their way onto the market. So there's certainly some issues, some concerns about that kind of sales model, complicated by many factors in the world today.
Right. And playing off of David's point on the perceived ruggedness of these EV trucks, IHS Markit and other outlets have actually recently reported that the F-150 Lightning's aluminum battery enclosures will be supplied by Magna. And these enclosures, they're going to provide protection to high voltage batteries that are underneath the underbody there, and also other electrical parts. And this also contributes to the structural strength and safety aspects of the truck's frame. So buyers need not worry in that aspect about heat, water, and debris causing damage of their truck, like David mentioned, with the going off-road portions as well. So these are some advancements we're seeing with these EV trucks.
Very good. Thank you for providing some insight into the consumer's point of view here. Moving on now, what are some of the new propulsion technologies you guys have been seeing on some of these upcoming EV trucks, and what does the competition look like at this point? And how is this relevant to potential EV and truck consumers?
Okay, well, there's been several EV trucks that have been announced, some major ones that we can jump into and discuss. One of the first ones is the Rivian R1T, and it will have up to 300 miles of driving range, 800 horsepower, and 0 to 60 in 3 seconds with its standard 135 kilowatt hour battery pack. That will be standard at first. Now it's expected that a 180 kilowatt hour battery pack will be available sometime in 2023, and then range will be up to around 400 miles at that point. Then you also have the GMC Hummer EV, which uses GM's Ultium battery tech and features a 3-motor drivetrain that has 1,000 horsepower. So that makes it among the most powerful EV trucks. And also in other news, GM just recently announced a $7 billion investment in the state of Michigan to make it the hub for electric vehicle development and manufacturing. That's one of the largest investments in their company history. So we're going to see a lot of growth with their EV products. On top of that, you have the Chevy Silverado EV, like we mentioned. That vehicle was unveiled at CES alongside the Equinox EV and a Blazer EV that will come at a later date. And it'll ride on the Ultium platform shared with the Hummer EV. And Silverado EV work truck and RST variants will have a DC fast charging capability up to 350 kilowatts. So that's something that we can expect from there. Then you have the F-150 Lightning. It has a standard range battery, 98 kilowatts and 230 miles of range, and an extended range battery of 131 kilowatt hours and 300 miles of range. And Ford has actually doubled production of the F-150 Lightning due to strong demand. So if anything, that's an indicator that this electric truck market is going to be very hotly contested. And you have a lot of interest in consumers that are very interested in this and could have implications moving forward. Final two are are from a couple of startup brands. You have the Tesla Cybertruck. It has been delayed until 2023, but it will be available, Tesla says, in a base single motor rear wheel drive, 250 miles of range. And Cybertruck will also offer also the dual motor all-wheel drive and tri-motor all-wheel drive. And then you have the Lordstown Endurance. Now, Lordstown actually has not released any battery capacity info on the Endurance, and the company has had a lot of financial and legal troubles that has really made the truck's eventual launch increasingly unlikely, but range is expected to be around 250 miles. So most of the tech on these EV trucks really has revolved around battery technology and performance and what we can break down from all of that. So those 0 to 60 times of 3 to 4 seconds, 300 to 400 miles of range. And this is only going to increase as battery technology develops and charging capabilities develop and advance as well. What we can also take from this is structural battery pack advancements are another area of development. So for example, Rivian's structural battery pack is housed in a carbon composite, and that helps to reduce weight. And like I mentioned, the Cybertruck is delayed, but it's expected to use a new 4680 structural battery pack from Panasonic. And Elon Musk claims that when that battery pack is used, there'll be a 10% reduction in vehicle mass and a 12% increase in range across the Teslas that it will be used in. You know, Rivian has, moving on to e-motors, they have a quad e-motor setup, and they say that offers better torque control for locking differentials, going again back to David's point with the off-roading and whatnot. So that could be an added technological benefit and be used for various features that we'll touch on a little bit later in this podcast. But we're going to see a twin front and rear e-motors for all-wheel drive used on a lot of these EV trucks. But hub motors have not been proven in IHS Markit. We're a little bit more pessimistic in our hub motor uptake in our forecasts because of the fact that these hub motors have not been again proven in terms of durability. We're a little bit more confident about e-motors that live within the subframe. So those are some aspects there that can definitely be taken from these uptaken EV trucks and the various aspects about them.
Very good. Great overview of what's out there and what's to come. Now, on to our next question. What are some EV and supply chain sticking points, and what is in place to help overcome some of these potential constraints? David, maybe you can take this one.
Yeah, I can jump in and talk about some of these constraints in terms of how consumers are how these concerns of consumers are being alleviated a little bit. I alluded to the range anxiety is quite a big problem. The nice thing about trucks and some of these larger vehicles, the Hummer, the Silverado, they're quite large vehicles, so they house larger batteries, right? And in general, they're coming to market with longer ranges. We're hitting that sweet spot of 300 miles or more, based on what people are expecting. So that's great. We're also seeing, some efforts around making these trucks more of adding more utility to them, right? We've all seen the commercials where someone took their F-150 and during a power outage was able to use it as a generator for their house, right? You take that a step back, and now you have a power source on the work site, right? It's a great source of energy to run power tools and other things for the utility aspect of the truck segment in general. And then you can't talk about the opportunity with EVs without talking about torque. And you can't watch a truck commercial, see a truck ad without a torque figure popping up. And once we start jumping into this EV segment, we're seeing it already, right? The torque numbers that these vehicles can produce are astronomical. And to a truck buyer, they look at torque as capability in towing, right? Maybe not so much on the supercar performance, the acceleration that Adam mentioned. It's certainly a nice little bonus. Maybe there's some concern there as well, but that added torque, the capability of what that torque brings, certainly causes the buyer's eyes to light up a little bit. Say, hey, maybe this is something that's worth looking at, because I haven't been able to see those types of numbers in a standard ICE vehicle, even in a diesel vehicle. We're talking torque numbers significantly higher.
Exactly, and I can think of three restraints to EV adoption. First, one of the major ones is going to be regulatory. The framework around that and surrounding EV adoption and incentives that promote the adoption of these electric trucks and electric vehicles is going to be of some concern. Suppliers, they're going to need to be ready to make the transition to electrification within a pretty aggressive time period. We're seeing things again move very rapidly. This is an exciting period, and success for this transition is going to depend on a variety of factors, including, companies, their internal sustainability goals, their external factors like transitioning to some new technology, the availability of financial resources for replacements, access to charging infrastructure, maintenance capability, and also regulations and incentives promoting the use of the EV trucks again. And on top of that, we have recharging times and locations. Trucks are often used at work sites, building sites and whatnot, and so this could have an impact, charge times on usefulness at work sites versus heavy duty ICE trucks, where range anxiety wouldn't be a concern because you're running the gas engine all day. And I've seen a report about you plug in a component in the F-150 EV in it, and when you're driving around, you can charge, but it charges at a slower rate, and so no doubt this is pulling on your battery as well to have that accessory plugged in. So something else to think about there. And also the level of rapid EV truck growth is going to spur a need for aftermarket replacement parts and service. And that's going to add pressure on suppliers that supply these EV trucks. However, this could also create an opportunity for those same suppliers who build e-axles for the EV trucks to ramp up production to quickly meet demand and make a full-on transition from ICE products, internal combustion engines. They will have to vie for business from OEMs, and they'll have to continuously adapt their technology. So it really can be an opportunity for them as well as also a potential constraint.
Okay, very interesting points. Maybe we can dig even a little bit deeper here. What would you say are the challenges of towing within EV truck versus ICE truck capabilities? And then, of course, range anxiety. Does that play a role here as well? Maybe you can, you already pointed in this direction, but maybe you can add a little more color here, Adam.
Right. Well, yes, range decreases sharply even in gas-powered models when you're towing a trailer. Plus, cold weather is also going to play a factor on range and charge times. Real-world driving results in an EV can often differ from official EPA ratings, and that means that owners are going to need to adjust appropriately in that aspect. It's a matter of knowing your vehicle and knowing exactly what you're purchasing, whether you need the short range or the long range battery. And, so that will take a little bit of homework on the owner's part. Additionally, the infrastructure, charging infrastructure will need to support charging vehicles with a trailer in tow because these vehicles require extra space to charge at charging stations. I've seen videos on the internet of like a Rivian truck pulling up the charge, testing out the towing at on various overpasses, and when it pulls up the charge, it's blocking off charging stations because you have your trailer in tow. So that will need to be accounted for. Other aspects of towing. Now, GM does say that they plan to launch heavy-duty HD trucks, HD EV trucks by 2035. So that gives them ample time to develop new battery technology that will maximize range and efficiency when towing. But this by virtue implies that there is a limitation in the technology being offered in the EV trucks that are set to launch imminently, especially, in more extreme use cases, heavy towing and whatnot. And as for the diesel trucks, this could mean a fairly rapid phase out if these better EV alternatives do become available quickly. Like, for example, California is actually set to ban registration renewal on diesel-powered commercial vehicles and trucks made before 2010 within the next year. And that potentially sets a new precedent for phase outs in EV adoption. Once we see CARB set some standards, it's not very long before, that trickles into some other markets in the United States, and so understandably, this has, upset some fleet owners and business owners out there in California. But also, there's going to be, as we mentioned, a work truck variant of the Silverado EV. So these so-called work truck models of the Silverado will be available earlier at launch and will reduce the need for consumers to wait for a more affordable model later within the launch. We often see that, like, you put down your reservation on say the Hummer EV or something like that, and you got to wait a year for it to come out. Well, this doesn't appear to be the case necessarily with the Silverado. And a fleet model will also launch with a 20,000 pound max towing capacity when it's properly equipped.
Now, staying on the topic of capabilities, will technology, and let's call them gimmick features, such as Hummer's crab walk, Rivian's tank turn, or near supercar performance numbers, be a key selling point for EV truck adoption versus ICE truck adoption? David, maybe you could shed some light on this.
It's an interesting observation that we've all made, right? When you look at the EV market as we've seen it up to date, the EV vehicles are kind of the forefront of technology, and that's the expectation. The opportunity for trucks is that in general, trucks have a fairly high selling price. We're seeing more premium vehicles move out of dealerships all the time, right? With additional features, new technologies coming in the trucks across the board. So it's an opportunity for OEMs to kind of showcase some of this technology, and whether it's gimmicky or not, it depends on what you intend to use the vehicle for. Whether it's for off-roading, the crab walk or tank turn, as you described, may not serve a lot of purpose for towing and the standard usage of a truck, but it doesn't mean that there's not an expectation for a truck owner to get into an uncommon situation, or perhaps even utilize it as additional feature content for off-roading. So it's such an opportunity for OEMs to showcase this technology, because it's kind of the expectation for the EV market. And not to mention, that there's the whole supply chain out there is working on new innovations that they're trying to bring to market with OEM partners, and this is an opportunity for them, right? There's a lot of competition, and it's really giving them the opportunity to highlight what some of these capabilities could be, them as in the supply chain, to work with these OEMs and get these things in the market. In sedans, we look at things like infotainment size. You can't talk about a Tesla vehicle or some of the other upcoming EV sedans or small SUVs making their way to the market without thinking about the infotainment capabilities. And we're already seeing that in the truck segment as well, whether it's in these EVs or even the emergence of these technology determination factors for purchasing in ICE vehicles.
Yes, certainly the gimmicky stuff gets a lot of attention, and very interesting points here. And to you both, based on the analysis and discussion we've had, what are other potential implications that electric truck adoption could have on the wider EV landscape looking forward? Let's start with you, David, again.
Yeah,
please.
I think in the U.S. market, we kind of have a chicken and egg dilemma, right? Our research looks into what are some of the constraints we've talked about, as far as people entering entering, the EV market or becoming an EV buyer. The truck segment changes some of those perceptions, perhaps, but the question you have to ask is, as Adam pointed out, is the charging infrastructure ready for the complications that owning a truck have? So it's like I said, it's really kind of a chicken and egg dilemma with this constraint in particular. What the EV truck brings. In essence, we're such a big market here in North America for trucks that the opportunity to drive some innovation, to put some more dollars into the development of new technologies, battery advancements. That's awesome, right? The opportunities there that will then trickle down to other segments in the EV landscape, right? Some of these new capabilities, the vehicle-to-vehicle charging, home generator capabilities, where could this end? As we become a much greener society, and start thinking about these efficiency metrics and how this could potentially change our lives, whether it's today or in the near future. And on a side note, the opportunities for the truck segment in general, we're bringing a new level of utility to the truck, right? We don't have a big motor in the front, so now these trucks have a frunk, a front trunk, as we just often refer to them as in the EV market. How is that going to change the aftermarket landscape for the truck buyer, right? Does this provide another level of utility that may change the purchasing decisions now that I have this additional secure storage space in the front of my truck?
Yes, I agree. I really like David's point about the chicken and egg dilemma. I think that we're at a really key turning point right now in the electric vehicle market in the auto industry. We're seeing things change very rapidly. You have a lot of these EV trucks coming out. We still have to develop some of the charging infrastructure, but they're paving the way for something that is new and uncharted in some ways, and that's going to excite a lot of buyers, as we see from the Ford having to increase again the production capacity of the F-150, and the Hummer EV, the launch edition, is already sold out. So there's a lot of excitement here, and people are aware of this change that's coming. They want to get into these new products and see these new features, like they want to have access to the front and the capabilities and whatnot. And that also plays into the battery technology of these trucks as well. The battery technology is used in these EV trucks is going to be used to help show consumers the importance of EVs in the evolving automotive landscape, and future improvements. That's only going to drive that point home even more. The DC fast charging capabilities too, they're also going to play a role in how consumers can maximize the usefulness of these EV trucks. And importantly, advancements in tech, they're going to allow future EV batteries not only to have higher capacity, but to charge faster and alleviate some of the issues like we mentioned with range anxiety. That's going to really be key for buyers, again, going back and forth to work sites. And these vehicles, they're often purchased, like we mentioned, as luxury vehicles. People like to take luxury vehicles sometimes on trips and whatnot. So that's going to be important to their adoption and what that means for the EV landscape moving forward. And battery construction for the durability of the trucks, and also power, could also have implications on future EV development as a whole. For example, GM's Ultium cells will be stacked in a horizontal orientation for their EV pickup truck and SUV applications, and will have NCMA chemistry. Now, NCMA stands for nickel, cobalt, manganese, and aluminum, for those that are unfamiliar with that. And finally, solid state battery development is going to prove highly beneficial for extending EV truck range in particular, and is going to be a major advancement in technology, because using a solid electrolyte rather than a liquid electrolyte, that's going to vastly improve charging times. And again, that's going to be important to buyers as we move forward. And solid state batteries have far more energy density than a lithium ion battery, while also being more compact in nature. And that allows for further weight savings in a structural battery pack, like we're seeing adopted in some of these EV trucks. And that's going to just be an overall technological advancement and improvement in products that are big and heavy, like we've acknowledged and mentioned here, but ultimately are going to pave the way for what I believe is going to be one of the next big things in the industry, in the EV market.
You said it, the next big thing. So we will make sure to keep an eye on all of these developments. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. A big thank you to you both for joining Autology.
Thanks, Anna. It's great being here.
Thank you, Anna. Yes, this is a great opportunity.
And thank you to all you listeners for tuning in as well. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's episode at our autology@ihsmarkit.com email. And you can find out much more at autotechinsight.ihsmarkit.com. Don't forget to hit all the subscribe, follow, and like buttons to stay on track with the latest Autology podcasts. And we look forward to you joining us again in the next episode. Bye now. Have a great day.